Hello and welcome to that Larimer County Show. Today we have a special co-host. In fact, it may be our regular co-host. We have Michelle Bird, who recently joined us as a public affairs manager.
Correct.
Do I have the right title?
That is the right title today, yes.
So Michelle, why don't you tell us how and when you received this new job?
Yeah, so I've been with the county for about 4 years now. I started out working for the county commissioners. I did some legislative work and some public engagement work, and when Denny LaRue, the former community relations manager, retired, I was promoted into the role.
Well, good for you.
Thank
you and I might be co-hosts, but since this is going to be your gig, you might fire me.
I might find a new co-host, as I have that authority now. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes today if we have the right chemistry.
And the way things are going, it'll probably be younger and better, right?
Probably,
yeah,
yes.
Okay. So we do have some guests, and I probably should get right to them. We have some very important guests. We actually have the Larimer County Commissioners with us today. So with us, we have Commissioner Tom Donnelly, who is the present chair of the Board of Larimer County Commissioners. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Neil Gluckman.
You're
Since you didn't introduce yourself.
Well, I don't have to because everyone knows me.
Notorious.
Yeah, people, they just know me from. And we also have Commissioner Steve Johnson. Thank you.
Pleased to be here.
And we also have Commissioner Lou Gator.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Michelle.
Represents
Thank
the
Northern part of the county.
northern part of the county, right?
And it's great to be here. Thank you all.
Well, it's good to have all of you. So, why don't you start out with a good leading question for our Board of County
Yeah,
Commissioners?
so it's December right now, and in true holiday spirit, we wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the past, the present, and the future for where you see your guys going. So why don't we jump into the past, or we go back to the past? Tell me a little bit about why you guys got involved in public service. What called you to serve?
Oh, I was going to let Steve go first, but that's okay. I'll have a little bit of fun. I was going to have a little fun at his expense. With Commissioner Johnson having had 12 years in the legislature, I was going to say he was just such a great role model I had to follow, but that's actually not the real reason. I grew up in a politically connected family, so I had always been interested in seeing if there was an opportunity that would open up at some point in time. And then when Cathay Reynolds left a year early, that was just the perfect opportunity for me for a number of reasons. I actually had decided not to run in a general, but when she left a year early, that opened an opportunity, and so I went for it.
Great. Commissioner Johnson.
So several things, I would say. First off, I enjoy people. I enjoy the challenges of public policy, solving problems, making life better for citizens. I enjoy history. It's interesting to see how our nation's history is so intertwined with public policy and how that's changed the course of history. I was also a Boy Scout when I was a lot younger, and Boy Scouts teach you your responsibility to citizenship in the nation, in the community, and how to be a good citizen. And lastly is kind of a story that a lot of people don't know, but my mom was born in Berlin, Germany. And when I was 8 years old, I traveled to Berlin, Germany, and at that time the Berlin Wall was up. So I saw what happens when a government takes away the rights of citizens, and my family was actually divided by the Berlin Wall. And just have an appreciation for our rights and freedoms that often we take for granted, but we really shouldn't.
Nice.
And that's my phone.
I would just say, I think one thing that everyone that runs for public office, is elected to public office, has in common is that we all have a desire to serve people. So I think you look back on your career, how you got here, and it wasn't always evident to you why you were doing what you were doing, but everything was leading you down a road to a certain point. And so, for me, for instance, it started out serving on the City of Loveland Planning Commission, for instance, or volunteering with a nonprofit group, or taking part in one of your Chamber of Commerce leadership development programs. And then I was actually elected Larimer County Surveyor in 2006, which was, most people probably have no idea
What does
still.
the Larimer County Surveyor do?
Oh, Michelle. So the county surveyor actually represents the county in boundary disputes involving the county. There's some other statutory duties that they perform. But I found out that the county surveyor was not going to seek re-election, and so I decided to run for that kind of out of the blue and was elected. And from that role, I kind of got an inside look of how the county operated. I saw some things I thought could be changed, and so 2 years later, I actually ran for commissioner and was successful in being elected to that seat. So I think the underlying thing that most of us would say is is that there were things that were always kind of leading us in that direction, and maybe we didn't even know it at the time, but everyone I've met, whether they're in the state legislature or a county elected office, genuinely has a desire to help people, I think, and to really engage with them and try to help solve problems and make things better. And I say that for folks on both sides of the aisle, even the ones on the other side for me. And so I think that's what most of us probably think, and where most of us probably have come from in our past.
Good. As a professional, I wanted to demonstrate what happens when a phone rings during a TV show.
Yeah, well done.
I hope
Well
I
done,
did.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Handled that well.
It does,
Accomplished.
and Tom went through it without
Yeah.
even a
I
beat.
barely
So,
noticed.
so for those watching out there,
Barely noticed.
I'm not going to fire you yet.
good, good,
That's your.
That was test
you have
number
one more
one.
chance.
good, good, good.
One
You know,
strike.
we
It's strike
ran,
one.
actually, we ran ourselves the broadband issue, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the citizens actually put on, and I think by petition, and then asked you guys, I shouldn't be talking in that way, asked the Board of County Commissioners to put on the ballot an issue regarding behavioral health. Unfortunately, it did not succeed, and I know there's a lot of interest with our community that we continue working on that. So do you have any ideas of how the county will still pursue the issue of behavioral health?
Well, I know we're going to let Commissioner Johnson probably talk a little more. I want to jump in and say that just because the bill didn't pass doesn't mean the problem went away. And so as county commissioners, we still have a very real problem. That is part of why this was on the ballot in the first place. And we need to come up with an effective way to address it. And I think that has to be, it was already a high priority. I think it continues to be that. I'll let my colleagues elaborate a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I would say first this came out of our county strategic plan, which is a document we've been working on for several years, where we went to the community and asked them what are emerging issues that the county should be involved in, that are real challenges the community faces, that the county has an important role in addressing, and this really was the number one issue. And while it's disappointing that the measure failed, I think in politics what you need to do is learn from those disappointments, come back with a better approach or a better proposal. It's not uncommon that many good and large ideas take several times to really fully explain and understand the significance on the part of the community. So most everybody that I have talked to has asked us to try again, to come back and explain more of how this would work, more of what the benefits would be to the community. And I think ultimately it will be successful, because I think it is a good policy for the county. 1 in 4 people are affected with a behavioral health issue, so it affects just about every family in our county. And this type of an approach that's getting better treatment for mental health can have so many positive benefits for the community. I think it really is imperative. You know, as leaders, you look into the future and how can you make your community better and what can you do? And you can't be discouraged by setbacks. Every election is a different situation, and a good leader will look at the mistakes of the past, the problems of the past, and come back with an even stronger approach.
Sure, and I think it's all been said, but I just say, you know, we have world-class physical health care services here in this community. What we lack is really mental and behavioral health services, and so I think that this issue went a long ways towards addressing that, and I think that, and like Commissioner Gator said, those issues persist, and we will continue to work to try to find solutions. This is really about, I think this is really about preserving our communities, keeping our families strong, and I think there's really a need and a desire by a lot of people in the community to see this be successful.
Do you
So
think
it'll move forward.
the long ballot had any impact in it not passing as well?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
I do, and I think a lot of the tax issues on the ballot, you look at some of the other tax issues, even the school questions in Fort Collins, which have normally enjoyed very strong support in this community, very narrowly passed. I think the long ballot, I think a lot of tax questions, I think a very contentious national election made it difficult to get the message of a local issue through all of that noise in the collective conversations. 2 years from now is a non-presidential election. Tends to be a more focused electorate at that time, not as much on the ballot. I think have a much better chance of making a positive, persuasive case in that election. But I think a lot was gained. You know, a lot of education was achieved by this. A lot of groups were very supportive. We've built a very strong base of support that we can build on for the future. That's going to be very helpful, I think.
So I think what I hear from the board is that we're not giving up on that. It's a very important issue. We need
Absolutely.
to address it, and
Right.
we're looking down the road.
Right.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. We wouldn't have put in the strategic plan if we didn't think it was important. Yeah, absolutely.
So mental health is one of those regional issues that the board has been focusing on, and I know the board is working on a lot of regional collaborative issues. And so to jump into the ghost of the future, I should say, I was hoping you guys could talk about let's say we're here a year from now, and what are the things that you guys hope to work on in 2017, and what are the things you hope to achieve in 2017? Commissioner Donnelly, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think there's a few things we'd like to talk about from the strategic plan perspective. One of those strategic plan items was transportation, and so you're going to see a major movement from the county on a couple of fronts. One on our local road system. If you're like me, you get very frustrated when you think about the fact that 1 in 10 bridges on the federal system is actually structurally deficient. We have 5 bridges on our mainline county road system which are structurally deficient right now. So as part of our strategic plan, we made a goal and we said, look, we are not going to settle for having any structurally deficient bridges on our county mainline road system. And so actually next year, the first of those 5 bridges is going to be fixed. It's going to be completed and made completely safe, structurally sound, and we're going to be on a roll, I think, that's going to carry us on to the next few years to get those knocked out.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
defining structurally deficient, does that mean that we shouldn't cross those bridges?
No, it doesn't necessarily mean
Because
that.
we don't want to scare anybody.
It depends. It doesn't necessarily mean they're in danger of falling down. Sometimes they're load posted. Sometimes you can't drive a propane truck over them or a school bus.
But
in
all our
some
bridges
instances.
are
Yeah,
drivable.
nothing's in danger of collapsing, but but there are structural issues with the bridge which
Should be addressed.
need to be addressed sooner rather than later, unless you're in the federal government and you don't ever do it. But anyway, and the other thing I want to talk about is actually something very positive that happened regarding the federal government, and that's our work on I-25 and expansion of I-25. As you know, the Larimer County government and the commissioners were the first local government to step up and put local dollars into I-25 with the hopes of creating a project there. Ultimately, that led to a $25 million local match of monies that kind of spurred a project to be put together that's going to expand I-25 from approximately Highway 14 on the north end, North Fort Collins, down to almost Highway 402 on the south end, which is the South Loveland exit. That work wouldn't have happened without local government working together, and I think it's a great success story. In fact, the first of our local projects there that are precipitating that full expansion was a Berthoud climbing hill, and that work just finished, and that road just opened up, and so people can drive on it now. It's pretty exciting. We're doing some work at Crossroads to expand the bridge there, which is a bifurcated structure, which it needs to be replaced to make that thing viable for the third lane. And so, in 2017, I hope we see some good positive movement forward on I-25, and hopefully we still have a section of roadway that we have to complete between Longmont and Loveland, and hopefully we'll be well along the path to seeing that section of highway expanded as well.
And it looks like it's certainly the near future rather than, I don't know how far out the prediction was if we didn't have this.
In decade. The projection was decades from
Yeah.
now, and it's going to happen in the
So
next
that's
several
a
years.
very large accomplishment.
That's right. It's something that I think the board is really proud of, and I think all the local governments and all the people in northern Colorado should be proud of it too, because their dollars coming to bear, coming home and making a project possible and successful.
And this is probably also a good illustration of cooperation of the cities and the
Yeah.
county.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And the reality is that it's that's not really a news story usually. I mean, usually the news story is somebody's fighting with someone else, and people are at each other's throats about some issue or another. This is and so I think people get that impression that all we do is fight, and local governments. Here in Larimer County, at least, that would be the exception, certainly not the rule. And so I think we set a pretty high bar for working together and working with our municipal partners, and even working across county lines with Boulder
Right.
and with Will County to get things done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to brag either, but I think Larimer County is really good at partnerships.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that that's known throughout the state, and it's recognized.
Commissioner Johnson.
I think these answers, one, will illustrate the wide variety of things that the county government is involved in that a lot of times we don't think about or we take for granted. And one thing that I will be working on very hard this year, along with Michelle, is something we probably don't think about very much, and that's our Larimer County landfill. We recently surveyed citizens about what services do you think are the most important in Larimer County, and interesting, I think the landfill came out on top.
Yep, number
Which
one.
kind of surprised me, but most counties don't run a landfill. We're unusual. Larimer County runs a landfill. I think that's good for the citizens. It provides another option for them. It also provides an opportunity for the citizens to see things in a landfill, in solid waste disposal, that might not be profitable for a small business, but might be a community value. Recycling is a good example. Recycling is not very profitable right now with the commodities market, but I think it's important to our community. And as we know, our landfill probably has about 9 years of life left. So there's a challenge. What are we going to do with a future landfill? Are we going to be involved in that? Or are we just going to do landfilling? Are we going to do a different emphasis on recycling? Are we going to do composting? Are we going to do waste to energy? So this is not really a problem, it's a challenge, because I think we have the opportunity to look at a lot of new technologies that were not around when our landfill was built in the 1960s. What we're planning to do is work very closely with the community to find out what the community wants in a landfill, what they're willing to support, what they're willing to pay for, what kind of environmentally sustainable strategies are important to our community. So it really is an exciting opportunity to do something that will be in our community probably for the next 40 or 50 years. It's a real challenge. It's exciting to me. It doesn't sound like it to a lot of people, trash, but it is. I think it's
When most
interesting.
people go out to our landfill, one thing they always come back saying, I learned so much. They just don't realize everything that Larimer County does out at our landfill, the hazardous waste. We have a garbage garage out there that is actually very
Educational.
informative and fun.
Kids love it.
Kids love it.
Yep.
Adults love it.
Yep.
But
Kids of all ages.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
With
I
our
love it.
regional
I love
watershed
it.
planning, I do know we have a lot of information on our website. They go to larimer.org/wasteshed, not watershed, waste shed. They can find out more about it.
Unfortunately, the kids end up talking trash, but
Yeah.
That's probably
Maybe one of the
strike
few
two right
times
there.
that's what you want them to do.
Strike two.
So Commissioner Gator, 2017.
So one of the things that happened in 2016, and you referenced it earlier, Michelle, is we had a ballot initiative that the commissioners put on to exempt us from the restrictive provisions of Senate Bill 152, which prevented Larimer County government from being involved in a number of things. The most important was partnering with and being involved with high-speed internet services. We have had a lot of incredible conversations with our internet service providers in and around the area, as well as some of the rural partners, other people, rural REA, some other entities like that, including, and we've also had great conversations with our municipalities, with Fort Collins, with Loveland, with Estes Park, even had some preliminary conversations with Wellington to try to start to understand how can we solve a connectivity problem regionally. We're now in 2016. This is the year of the internet. Most people do their banking online. In fact, I would really challenge everybody. There are a few of you out here I know can do it, but you're probably not watching this show who don't use any internet for anything. Don't use email, no electronic shopping, no banking, no Netflix.
Right.
No, that Larimer County show, because it's only it's available on cable. But there are a lot of things that people use the internet to get done in this day and age. And one of the other big advantages of a high internet connectivity is it reduces the need for physical proximity to a city. If you have a good internet connection, you can Skype or other means of communication to allow us to telecommute. It's just a different age than it was 30 years ago. So our big step in what we hope to accomplish in 2017 is, and we told the voters we would do this first, is to start a study. And I've worked with our project manager on that study, and we've really been crystal clear, there is not a right answer. We're going to ask some experts what makes the most sense to do in Larimer County There is no preconceived notion. There is no get high-speed broadband to lose new house. That would be
Right.
great, but that's actually not on the list. So the real answer, the real question is, what is the right answer for high-speed internet services in Larimer County? What does that look like? How do we partner? Who do we partner with? And so we are hoping to launch that study. We've got an RFP process being put together right now, and hopefully we'll have that early next year that we can put it out to bid and get that started sooner rather than later.
And you just kind of covered more of the personal use of that really important, infrastructure, the highway of the future. But it's also, as your role too, within economic development for businesses. I mean, there's so many things that you don't have to report to a physical place like we know. When you have a job, you physically go into an office and you work there. But that's not always going to be true in the years.
Well, and one of the interesting things is, and I mentioned me getting internet because I get teased about, well, that's why Lou wants to do it, is because he doesn't have it. And actually, Neil, and you know this, this is something I've actually been interested in and actually trying to drive since I first became a commissioner in 2010. And there were a couple of things that drove that. Some of that was going to my citizen meetings up in Red Feather Lakes. And they already had an initiative to try to get high-speed internet in the village because their connectivity was horrible up there. And in fact, I remember meeting a couple that run an internet publishing business out of their home. And they pay a fortune for satellite, and really cloudy days seriously impact their ability to do business. And yet they love living where they live. There's, other than connectivity, there's zero reason for them to move in town. They have their kids in the schools up there. They love the community up there. They're very involved and plugged into the community, and the biggest thing they do is they run a publishing business, which is primarily the two of them, out of their home with their own servers, and they don't need to be in town. So this is something, when I first learned about that, and I realized there are a lot of opportunities with this, that really started to get me on the bandwagon. And at that point in time, I had great internet connectivity because I was close to town.
One of the great things about my job is I get to learn a little bit about all these different subjects. And one of the things I really find fascinating or that I would think is very beneficial about broadband, rural broadband, is the access to healthcare. You know, we talked about mental health earlier, but just technology these days, they can Skype with their doctor about, whatever their ailment is, or mental health care as well.
In fact, one of the things, I'm on the State Emergency Medical and Trauma Services Advisory Council, and one of the things I remember, we had it's called rapid improvement process to look at things we could do. And they were talking about, and I learned this, they called it teledoc or doc on a stick, where you could work with a remote or a rural community. And in fact, I found out the clinic that was in Red Feather would have loved to have taken advantage of it, where if you have somebody come in with an issue, you could actually connect to a specialist that might be at a level 1 or a level 2 hospital to get, what do I need to do to stabilize this person so they're safe to transport in a helicopter or in an ambulance, so that I can start that golden hour right now instead of waiting until they get to your other facility. But I need to tie into a neurosurgeon or a cardiac specialist or something like that. And right now that's just not available in a lot of our rural areas. This would facilitate that.
Time goes quickly.
Time
when you're
does
having
go
fun.
quickly, yes.
And so my question to you is, what do you think? This is, well, two questions. Did you enjoy your first?
I did enjoy it.
And do I still have a job?
Well, that's to be debated.
Hey, has he had
See.
3 strikes yet?
I think
I
he
heard
only
2.
got 2, but we'll see.
We can set him up for the 3rd one.
How long have I done this show?
County show.
This is probably almost 18 years doing this.
18 years.
Yes.
Wow.
And I still haven't got it right.
And you're kind of famous for being a pretty laid-back guy around the office, especially. How many times have you worn a tie on the show and even to your day-to-day job?
So this is the very first time I've worn a tie on the show.
Okay.
This is probably the first time I wore a tie in maybe 15 years. So this is a monumental day event.
Wow. See, Michelle, he really wants his
I was
job.
gonna say,
Might have to erase one of those
It
strikes.
was like a job interview. I really wanted,
We didn't even know you had a tie, Neil.
I didn't even know I had a tie.
Flip on.
Yeah, fun.
It's a dollar store.
Found him with his leisure suit in the closet.
So,
if this is your last show, what was your favorite show?
oh gosh.
If it was, yeah.
It was, that's a loaded question.
It's, they kind of blend. Actually, this is my favorite show. Today.
Yeah, very good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah. So you know what? I want to thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to thank the Board of County Commissioners for being here today. It did go fast. I hope it went fast for you.
Yeah.
Hope it was an enjoyable experience. I wanted to thank our listeners. I want to thank the City of Fort Collins for their hospitality and
Yours
using their
too.
studio, and we're great partners with them as well. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye.
night.
Any last words?
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Great to serve the people of
Great.
Larimer County.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Neil. Michelle.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I would like to thank our viewers for watching That Larimer County Show.